Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. If Ed, could you please kick us off?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being part of today's Nonprofit Resource Hub webinar entitled Nonprofit Collaboration as a Tool for Sustainability and Growth. An exciting topic. We're really looking forward to hearing from our presenters today. My name is Ed Probst. I am president and co-founder of the Vanguard Insurance Agency, which has been serving the nonprofit community's employee benefits needs for almost 22 years now. We're also a founding partner and member of the Nonprofit Resource Hub, what we affectionately refer to as NRH. Just to tell you a little bit about the Nonprofit Resource Hub, NRH is a trade association whose mission is to serve, be a resource to educate and connect its members to the nonprofit community. At the same time, NRH serves the nonprofit sector as a bridge connecting nonprofit organizations to each other and to provide helpful resources. And that's part of what we are doing here today. A little bit about what we do for nonprofits. We provide nonprofits with resources to help their organizations grow and thrive. We share a directory of our associate members. These are vetted, trusted partners and providers and advisors who deliver quality products, services, and education to the nonprofit sector. The NRH hosts networking sessions and events to foster opportunities for collaboration, both with other nonprofit organizations and with experts serving the sector. Talking about nonprofit partners, currently we have over 100 nonprofit partners that are members of our organization, and we encourage each of the nonprofits joining us today to collaborate with us after the event and become a nonprofit partner. By design, there's no cost for nonprofits to join as a nonprofit partner, and you can go to our website to learn about all of the benefits the Hub provides and how to become a nonprofit partner at www.nonprofitresourcehub.org. I'd like to thank our board members, Sir Tillman Ballin, attorneys, Serini and Associates, certified public accountants, nonprofit sector strategies, Triumph International Business Consulting, and Vanguard Insurance Agency. I would also like to thank our associate members. As you can see, there's too many here to list in the time we have, but if you could just take a look at the slide that's showing now, we have, as I mentioned, a great relationship and vetted partnership with all the organizations on the screen right now. They're instrumental in helping us provide the resources and education that we provide like today. So just like to give them a big thanks for all they do. And with that, I'm very pleased to introduce today's speakers, Danette O'Connell from Triumph International and Lindsay Kijewski from Sea Change Capital Partners. Lindsay, Danette, please take it away.
Great, thank you. So my name is Danette O'Connell with Triumph International, where I provide finance and operation resources to nonprofits to help them grow their organizations. I've been doing this since 2004. I am an entrepreneur several times over, so I had that out of the box thinking, and in order to help generate additional revenues, and which we will be talking about today for growth. So Lindsay, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure, thanks, Danette. My name is Lindsay Kijewski. I'm here from Sea Change Capital Partners today. To chat with Danette about collaboration and other tools for growth and sustainability. I manage at Sea Change our national grant making program called the Sea Change Lodestar Fund. That's a grant making initiative that helps nonprofits explore, plan, and execute their collaborations. And we've been managing that fund since 2008. So for over a decade, we have been a grant maker focused solely on sustained collaboration work. We have 3 other funds that do this work, one local to New York City, one local to Philadelphia, and a national issue-based fund focused on higher education. So across the funds, we reviewed more than 1,200 potential collaborations and have made grants in about 300 situations. So looking forward to sharing some of the lessons learned from that a little later on.
Great, thank you. So now I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. so that you can see our PowerPoint. Okay, great. So here's the topic, and so we'll get started. So topics that we're going to discuss is reimagine your nonprofit to empower your new normal, techniques on how to grow your nonprofit, how to obtain grants in collaboration with another nonprofit, considerations for nonprofits considering to collaborate. So reimagining your nonprofit to empower your new norm. So, through the pandemic, this is a great opportunity to analyze your nonprofit to change or to grow. And a lot of people have done that in the last year of what are we going to look like moving forward? And this could include a hybrid working from home and in the office, meaning that you can share desks between two employees. And so that if you have to go into the office, some people have eliminated their offices, and that saves a lot of money. Or you can reduce your footprint by sharing a desk between people or do the hybrid. Either way, it's reducing the footprint and can save nonprofits a lot of money. If you're looking to do that, just as a FYI, we have a partner on our website that has really inexpensive office space. So you may want to look into that if you're looking to reduce your office space and you're just kind of looking for a couple desks. They have it from anywhere from $25 to $75 a month. You can't beat that. It's really inexpensive. So these are some of the resources that the hub provides. Having a work from home policy during winter months, even if you're going to go to a hybrid or a work from home, it's really great to have a policy behind that just to make sure that everybody understands what the expectations are of working from home if you don't already have one. A lot of people have implemented it during COVID, but if you are going to have this moving forward, it's great to have that. The other ways are new programs via Zoom can reach larger audiences. So we have seen that a lot of organizations have expanded their programs because they can reach more people because of the Zoom. That can continue to moving forward because there's so many different ways that you can do that. Of implementing new programs, unless it's feet on the ground programs that you have to be in one location and expand organically or differently, then that really has a great benefit to your organization and to others. So techniques on how to grow your nonprofit. So there are several different ways that you can do this, and I'm just naming a few because there's a lot of them that I have implemented over the years. One of them is charge a fee for service or sell products. People don't think about selling product, but it's a great way to generate additional revenue for your organization. And people are willing to do that. Instead of donating, sometimes they'll buy a product that will just say like shoes for people that need them. You sell them and then donate the shoes to the organizations. So products like that, not products like that they're going to get. And fee for service. There's a lot of, most nonprofits don't charge for a service, but it's acceptable to do so in certain instances. Some nonprofits, it doesn't make sense, but it's something that you can explore and to see if it's good for your organization. The other way is to expand your programs. So you can expand your programs, the number of programs, or where they're located. So you can expand beyond your territory that you are, if that's in another city, another state, another country. So any of those you can do, and that will allow you to apply for more grants. And if you the next one is create a partnership. If you create a partnership with another nonprofit, Then you can go and collaborate on different grants. So if they're federal grants, state grants, or whatever the case shall be, because you may have complementary services that, that work. So, expanding your program by yourself or with a partner. So either one of them works, but you really have to explore. If you're expanding the program, you have to make sure that you do an analysis to make sure that that program is going to work where you want to expand. Or if you're expanding the number of or different programs, the same thing. I'm all about doing analysis to make sure that in any way that you grow your nonprofit, that the numbers make sense and that the program makes sense. So make sure that you really do those analysis to see where you're going to go. And then creating partnerships. Creating a partnership could be in many different ways. So you can partner with another nonprofit just by a simple agreement saying you're going to do this and I'm going to do that and this is how we're going to move forward. You can apply for grants with a partnership, but really make sure that that is spelled out so that all the expectations are set, because there's nothing worse than getting into a partnership and then down the road, and then there's assumptions. You never want to assume, so make sure that the document is very thorough. And then collaboration. So collaboration, meaning a merger or more of a formal agreement between two organizations or multiple organizations. And the partnerships can also be multiple organizations. It doesn't have to be just one. And there's a lot of things to consider on both of those, but more so on the collaboration. So Lindsay, do you want to say a few words about the collaboration kind of do's and don'ts?
Sure. Thanks, Danette. This continuum of different types of collaboration is a tool that we like to use at Sea Change. One of the tools, as Danette shared, that many nonprofits are utilizing as they look toward either sort of reacclimating to this new kind of environment that we're all daily juggling, or just in terms, even if not in reaction to COVID, just thinking about ways to look toward a more sustainable future, is sustained collaboration. And the way that we define sustained collaboration at Sea Change in terms of our grant making support is a collaboration that fundamentally shifts the business model of one or more nonprofits as it's looking towards the future. So for instance, two nonprofits coming together to hold a shared event would not necessarily qualify, although that's a great tool to use in terms of a partnership or an alliance. That is not where we focus our grant making efforts. It's in those sort of longer term, more formal affiliations. So things like mergers, asset transfers, shared back office, shared purchasing agreements. As you can see, they really run the gamut. All of them are great tools, but we are focused more on the right side of this diagram. About 80% of what we see in our portfolio is nonprofits either exploring or planning full mergers. So it's definitely a practice that is on the rise out there. And we sort of see that nonprofits that decide to merge often would share the sort of idea that they see that delivering on their mission can transcend the organizational structure. Whereas I think there might be a historical context of nonprofit mergers being a bit of a taboo, because I think the general attitude was that they were precipitated from a place of either financial or programmatic weakness. That is definitely not, what we see with the nonprofits with whom we work. They're just thinking about smarter, more efficient ways to deliver on those missions.
I just want to make a few comments here. So Lindsay kind of does the right side of this graph, and Triumph does, Danette, me, I am Triumph, sorry, does the left side. So I do a lot of the collaboration, the movements, the short term, the partnerships, those kind of things. And Lindsay does more of the mergers, the joint ventures. one of the things I want to say about this is that there are several different ways that you can do this. And with nonprofits, she has asset transfers that you can just transfer the assets, which could be just the clients. So if you're helping, a nonprofit that just has clients, which is fine, then those become your assets, but not take over and do a full merger. So there's many different ways that you can slice and dice all of this. So if you want to have, or if you have any questions, feel free just to reach out to either one of us, because we can explain and break this down. Really, the best way to do this is really look at your individual organization and really go through the question. I really act like a collaborative piece to this and really thought partner on what is best for your organization when it comes to growth or these or even mergers. So before we move any further, we wanted to launch a poll to ask some questions. So great. So we have 71% of you that have looked at this as a tool, which is wonderful. So thank you for that information. And it's really important to really make sure that you go through an entire process to make sure that it makes sense for your organization.
In terms of what we see, as I've shared, right, on the tip of the iceberg, right, people are coming to the table for formal collaboration for all sorts of different reasons. But the three major areas in which nonprofits are seeking change or, increased efficiency or effectiveness that we see are financially, programmatically, and in terms of organizational capacity. So I won't go through each of these things in deep detail. Financial, obviously being able to have a healthier overall financial picture, or negotiate, tap into economies of scale to as a bigger purchasing entity or as a bigger service provider. So that's one leg of the stool. The other, programmatically, if you, as a result, usually these nonprofits come to the understanding that they would like to engage in a programmatic either expansion or diversification as a result of a strategic planning exercise, but understanding that there could be an easier or more efficient way of expanding into either a new service area or into a different geographic or clientele by partnering rather than, going through all of the feasibility study and research and understanding the niche and where you would be able to meaningfully add programs to an existing suite. Why not think about a partnership with somebody who has been providing those services already in that area, has that reputation, and you can, capitalize on the institutional knowledge and all of that of somebody who's been doing it for a while. But then organizational capacity, we've been seeing this more and more. People are thinking about the way that the workplace exists very differently since we, find ourselves in this pandemic where we can't physically be with coworkers and things like that. And so we're seeing a lot of folks either sharing staff members or sharing different pieces of their business in order to reduce their individual overhead costs. One thing we've been seeing, this is something that can be used to solve for succession planning. So if you're considering, either hiring a new executive director and using that money to go through an executive search versus using some of those funds to determine what the best strategy could be. It could be an executive search and recruiting a new executive director, but it might also be an opportunity to partner with an existing organization who could provide that talent as well as other pieces that would flesh out, the business model. And so we find that these collaborations mostly begin internally. We see the work that the nonprofits do as part of preparation for sustained collaboration work as useful far beyond the sort of fixed context of whether or not they're interested in merging, because it helps to gain internal clarity around priorities, programs, how you are interested in doing business that feels integral to the culture, things like that. And so some self-assessment considerations that nonprofits generally engage in before coming and talking to us to talk about lining up funding for these things is number one, time. Are all parties, staff and board kind of ready to take on this commitment? Because as we know, there is plenty of folks in the nonprofit sector who already have plenty to fill every single day and beyond. And so understanding that this is something that will take place in addition to the existing workload of, delivering programs daily it can be a bit of a commitment. In addition, thinking about financial readiness, because there are often significant one-time costs that could offset any immediate or short-term savings. That isn't to say that further down the road there won't be significant savings, but accounting for those in the early period of a collaboration is useful. Just really understanding why you find yourself considering this at this time. Is it because one of the organizations is in crisis mode? Is it because there's been an executive director's planned succession or a enormous shift to the way we are able to do business because we're all stuck in our homes? Having the motivations clear and the readiness assessed is something that we really look for in each of our conversations with nonprofits. And we've developed a framework which is helpful for some of those considerations. So this framework is called the MAKER framework. It's a cute little acronym. The M is, what is our mission? What is our culture? And how do we measure success? So those are the things that are core to the nonprofit, and getting really clear on them and how the mission is manifested daily in terms of the programs we deliver, the services we provide. Everybody who's a stakeholder involved in a collaboration should be pretty clear on this. The A is assets. What are our assets, both hard and soft? And so, yes, things like buildings and computers and employee skills, all of that is very useful. But then in terms of soft things, right? Intellectual property or a particular niche of the market or the ecosystem that is being served. So think about any of those things that give your nonprofit a competitive edge. And I know that it's sort of counterintuitive to be talking about competition with collaboration, but just being very realistic about the space in the market that the organization occupies. Keepers is the K. So this is where you get into your non-negotiable pieces. At every sort of negotiation or planning table for any of these things, organizations should have engaged in the work already around what is absolutely crucial to the organization's vitality, and know that if those things cannot be met in any new structure, that you have to have even if it looks like a slam dunk on paper, have those things figured out beforehand so that you don't end up compromising the organization's, really important pieces. A general rule of thumb for how many things should be on this sort of keeper non-negotiable list, we generally look for about 3 to 7 for organizations. It shouldn't be absolutely every single thing. If you come to the table with a list of 30 or 50 things that you see as non-negotiables, then maybe collaboration is not right at this particular time. But you should also feel strongly about at least a few things that are core to the organization's operations. The E stands for event. What challenges or opportunities lay ahead? And so I like to give an example for this one. For instance, you have an executive director who has been with the organization for 10 plus years and is looking to move on. Usually you'll have some advance notice of that in most cases, and looking at what is motivating the discussion at this point, some sort of event in the organization's life cycle that has led you to be considering this as an option. And then R is the reality. So that's that piece I was talking about, that it's, it can be an additional workload, it can be additional expenses. how much time, money, and internal capacity do we really have to be thinking about whether or not this is a viable option for us at this time. And once organizations are good and aligned in terms of both their internal considerations and then externally with a partner organization, that's when we usually enter the conversation. And we make grants in two general categories. One, which is exploratory funding, which usually begins with a letter of intent between two organizations to explore a collaboration with one another, and ends with the board vote as to whether or not to more formally move forward. So all of the diligence and all of the information gathering that leads up to boards being able to say, this is a good idea, we should start making plans as to how to move forward together, is the exploratory funding. And then the second half of that is the implementation funding, which is we've decided to move forward. We're going to get a date on the calendar as to when we'd optimally like to do that by, and we're going to do all of the, we call them internally at Sea Change, unsexy but necessary work of integrating operations. So we're talking about lease termination fees and moving fees and joint purchasing and supplier agreements and getting everybody on the same email servers and on the same HR software and integrating, the finances. And the end point of an implementation grant is when the merger or other collaborative structure is legally closed. And I know that Danette has seen and worked with organizations both in that, implementation planning phase and also in that exploration feasibility of determining whether there's a there. So I'm excited for us to chat about that a little more.
Yeah, and the R in reality is probably the most important because it's always going to take you longer than what you expect. So it's really helpful to really plan that out and do a timeline and how much it's going to cost and what the internal capacity is going to be, because it's going to be a lot of work. So just to keep that in mind. And just one other thing I wanted to say for Lindsay and myself, these are really high level on all of this. So there are so many different ways to grow your organization and to collaborate. So we're just touching on very high levels. But we do have a question for you, Lindsay, and then we're going to launch another poll after the question. The question is from Allison. Lindsay, could you give an example of an organization collaborating by sharing staff members? How that works, and if there's ever a concern for conflict of interest?
Yeah, that's a great question, Allison. Yes, I'd be happy to give an example. We're working with organizations right now who are now looking to come together in a full merger, but they have been sharing development personnel for 3 years. And so both organizations identified that they were interested in engaging and retaining dedicated development staff for fundraising, but neither had the budget to employ a full-time person at each of the orgs. So one of them had enough to pay for 40% of a competitive salary for development personnel, and then the other had 60%. And so they came together, they, met in a working group of nonprofits who all work around this issue area, and they were sharing kind of what some of their challenges are. And this was one that came up in that group. And they got to talking and were like, why don't we see if we could jointly engage someone? And so this individual works 2 days a week for the one organization and 3 for the other, which works great because they have a little bit of job security there in terms of being able to collect a full-time salary, even though it is split between the two organizations. In terms of the conflict of interest, it's a wonderful question. And I think that especially in when you're looking at organizations that, in this same example of like a development professional, where they might be competing for some of the same grants and things like that, because they met in a group of where they operate in the same space. Yes, I'm sure that there has been concern for conflict of interest. And I think that the number one kind of tool to be able to combat that on the front end is established regular opportunities for both organizations to meet and discuss the strategy with the professional who is doing their fundraising, because they could explain, I applied for this grant for this organization and not for this one because of this particular eligibility criteria on the size differential, or because of this particular facet of organization B's program that makes it a more compelling fit given, the funder's priorities. So yes, it's a good tactic. Like many other good tactics, there are drawbacks, but being able to combat that on the front end with some really transparent communication, we haven't heard of too many, situations that couldn't be worked through.
So I have, working with organizations that have merged, one of the things, I've worked on both ends of them. So I've been like the middle person who does the financial and operations on each side. So really running it by the board to make sure that kind of a conflict of interest, sharing resources, because they're sharing the salaries, they're sharing the resource, so making sure that is run by the board, you have the approval by the board, and that the agreement is on both ends is really key to making sure that works. This kind of collaboration of sharing staff is something that we really want to implement at the hub. So if you're interested in this, please let us know, because there are so many nonprofits out there that really can't afford to hire a full-time person, and it's hard to find part-time people. So especially if you're looking for an executive or even middle management anywhere in the organization, sometimes we've done this with executive assistants, shared them with other organizations. So if you have an opportunity like that, please just let us know. Kellyanne, can you launch the next pool? We're just going to do one more pool and then we're going to open. And this question Lindsay has already talked about, but we're just curious that if people know that this is even out there. So we just really wanted to get a feel for if people knew that there was grants for collaboration. Okay, so it's really split. So that's good. I'm glad that we did these polls so that we can get a feel for where you guys are at, and I hope that all of this was very helpful for you. And our contact information is here, which we'll be more than happy to answer any questions at this time, or even afterwards. Feel free to reach out to either one of us if you have additional questions. Lindsay, what trends are you seeing right now with COVID? Have you seen an increase or a decrease in collaboration?
Sea Change also participates, and all of our member funds participate in a national network called the Sustained Collaboration Network, where we're able to share knowledge and exchange, stories and trend lines with other funds around the country that do this type of grant making work. I'd say on the whole, we've seen a slight increase in the number of applications for funding to, explore or plan these types of transactions. Several of the local funds have stayed pretty fixed in terms of the demand, whereas our national fund, which I run, has seen a dramatic increase in demand. So it kind of differs around the country. We have seen a lot more nonprofits exploring these transactions far earlier in the process. So whereas up until the past, year and a half or so, we generally don't have as many conversations with single nonprofits who haven't even, determined who the partner will be yet or anything like that. We have had a lot more of those over the past year and a half with folks who are interested in how to vet partners, how much time and, average how much funding is needed to execute some of these transactions. And so I think people are seeing it as a tool, or as one possible tool in a very large toolkit of interventions that will help the nonprofits doing business now adapt and stay nimble in a very sort of unstable ecosystem.
And when should they contact Sea Change? At what stage do you think it's best for them to contact you?
Anytime, right? We are here because we believe in this as a viable tool to help a lot of nonprofits. We have undergone some of these we are a nonprofit too, and have undergone some of these transactions internally as well. We're really here and provide funding and technical assistance and advice because we're interested in routinizing this as a consideration for nonprofits. We'd like folks to be talking about collaboration on a regular basis, whether or not, some of those precipitating events are pushing the conversation forward. Feel free to call us at any point if you want to learn a little bit more about, in depth, some of the considerations for collaboration, or talk about your unique positioning as a nonprofit. We are an open book, happy to share some of the lessons that we've learned from evaluating these transactions over the years, and happy to stay in touch with individual organizations and people who just want to learn down the road. If it's a fit and you're interested in pursuing some of our funding, we're always happy to have that conversation too. So the long story long is to call us whenever. We're always here and happy to chat.
And I'm also a partner, a preferred vendor of the national collaboration. So if you want to contact me, feel free to contact either one of us. So we also have a question. Do you see any evidence that funders are opening up to providing more unrestricted funds to help nonprofits with their houses post-COVID?
So I think the question, Danette, is maybe referring to like recovery funds and like restart funds and things like that. Have you seen any of that so far? Or?
I haven't. I don't think that too much of that has changed. So I don't see that funders are giving out any more. I think they're being less strict with their unrestricted funds.
Mm-hmm. I'd say that it's a great question, Robin. The one that we've heard about, we're coming to the end of the second round of PPP here. And I think that we'll probably start seeing more of these types of funds sooner rather than later. There hasn't been a ton of activity from what we've seen so far. The exception being, I'll give a shout out to our colleagues who run the LA fund that does grant making around this, the Nonprofit Sustainability Initiative, because they've just recently launched, I believe, around 50 million raised from LA area funders as restart funds for arts organizations. And so super proud of them, a very cool project, and going to be definitely appreciated by the arts organizations out in their area. So that's one good model to look at if you're interested in seeing how people are starting to provide that recovery funding.
Great. So Harold, yes, it's the same organization. So his question was, is www nonprofit resource, nonprofit, no, that isn't. It's the Nonprofit Resource Hub. It's the second one. It's www.nonprofitresourcehub.org, not the other one. I hope that you found this very informative and that you learned a lot in here. There's, as we mentioned, there's several different ways and different stages that you can collaborate or grow your nonprofit. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to either one of us and we can kind of guide you in, depending on what your question is and what you're looking to do. It's a great way to generate unforeseen revenue and to be able to expand your organization. So, and to also save money. So, we have another one. Thank you. Oh, that was Robin. So she said, thank you. So glad C-Chain helped fund possible collaboration mergers. So thank you, Lindsay. That has been very, very helpful. So it's a wonderful organization that I have found doing mergers. So, and they are very, very helpful. And contact Lindsay with any of those questions because she's a wonderful resource to have.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
And do you have any other questions, Lindsay, or comments that you want to add?
I guess I have one question for you, Danette, about how you had mentioned in terms of the ways that nonprofits are looking to grow right now, with collaboration being one tool. You had also highlighted, fee for service revenue or selling products. I was wondering, fee for service, I understand a bit better because we have a fair amount of nonprofits we work with who are exploring those things. But what types of products are nonprofits kind of looking at monetizing to diversify their revenue streams?
So this can come in so many different forms. So I'll give you two examples. So one example was a organization in Africa. So they were selling products to provide shoes in that country. So me as a person, I can purchase a pair of shoes that is going to, it's a product going to the people in Africa. Also, here in the US, you can buy a bag of groceries for a homeless shelter or those kind of things. So you're purchasing a product, but you're purchasing a product for the organization to provide to its clients. So, and whoever that is. Some people will sell products for like t-shirts that you can buy for yourself, but it's more of purchasing products for the end user. So like I said, a bag of groceries, shoes, service, like it's all different types of things to provide. So like books for schools, and there was an organization in Cambodia that was looking to raise money for books. Instead of raising that money for the books, you can sell that as a product. So you can say, okay, if you buy 10 books, that will be for 5 kids, in need. So that kind of product. It's great to have those kind of services if you can do it. That'd be great. So we do have another question from Dan. We actually have 2 more. So can new, less than a year old nonprofit apply for grants to see change for things like building or refining their messaging, donor process, and donor outreach?
Great question, Dan. Unless it's 2 or more nonprofits looking to come together, our funding is not eligible. So we have to make grants to 2 or more nonprofits. We can't make grants to single organizations. So the way that we work with single organizations is just by sharing sort of best practices around collaboration and those consideration pieces.
Great. So we have another question from Bonnie, but it says, hi, I'm Ed. So do you want to take this, Lindsay?
Yeah, this is not a legal collaboration, but more of a part of our consortium. Bonnie, I would say that we should schedule a time to talk on or talk offline. Potentially, we can sort of get into some of the intricacies around different legal structures and things like that. So without knowing a little bit more about the structure of the consortium, and who is looking to become members and how the membership program runs and things, I can't give a clear answer, but I would be happy to if you want to either give me a call or shoot me an email to schedule some time to chat. I'd love to hear some more specifics of the collaboration, and then I can give you a firm answer as to whether our funding might be eligible.
Great. So we also have another question from Harold. When you join the Resource Hub, do you get help with finding funders in your area of interest? The Resource Hub does not provide this service, but our associate members provide these services. So we have Heller Fundraising as an associate member, and they would be able to help you with that. So the associate members or board members provide resources that can help with this. Okay, great. So I'm going to turn it over to Fred, and he's going to do a few closing remarks.
Yep. Thank you, Danette. And thank you, Lindsay,
Sure.
for a great informative presentation today. My name is Fred Taffer, and I am the owner of Tombo Visual Promotions, and we help nonprofits and associations get noticed and be remembered. We're a proud associate member of the Nonprofit Resource Hub, and I want to thank everybody for attending today's webinar. We will be sending a survey to everyone, and we ask everyone to please fill out the survey. It will allow us to know if we are meeting everyone's needs. Our next webinar will be June 10th at noon with Jacqueline M. Tizo, CEO and founder of JMT Consulting Group, who will be discussing tips and tricks for a successful software implementation. To register, please visit our website. We also have officially launched a job board on our website where nonprofit partners will be able to post jobs for free, easy to find on our homepage. Again, please visit www.nonprofitresourcehub.org for more information and to become a nonprofit partner. If you have any questions, please reach out to Danette O'Connell at doconnell@nonprofitresourcehub.org. And thanks again for attending today.
Great. Thank you very much, Fred, and thank you everyone for attending our webinar. We look forward to hearing from you.